Hi, everyone, and thanks for coming to another series in our alumni chats. Today's alumni is Andie Haugen, and she graduated in 2015 from the University of Michigan with a double major in PitE and IMP. That's individual major program. I think they changed the name perhaps since you were here. I'm not unsure. Anyway, if anyone is interested in an IMP, it's now run through the honors program. So I put a link in the email that was sent out to everybody so you could check that out. She specialized in wildlife conservation, and she did several study abroads when she was here, including eco-tracks in South Africa. And I'm sure she'll talk a little bit about those as we go through the questions. She worked in wildlife conservation in Thailand. Post-graduation, she's done some really awesome stuff, but I'm just going to briefly touch on it, as I'm sure Andie is going to hit on the things that she did. So she is now an animal trainer and educator at the animal or cat ambassador program at the Cincinnati Zoo, which, if I remember right, was your dream job, essentially. Yeah. I just remember you talking about cheetahs. And yeah, that being it. Yeah. She has a huge social media presence on TikTok, lots of followers there. You can catch the TikToks on Instagram as well. I've linked all of those to the email I sent out as well. She also posts on the Cincinnati Zoo blog. She was featured in a podcast called Zookeeper Andie. Well, the podcast was called that. The podcast is something specifically different, but the link is in there. She's featured in Cincinnati Magazine and Inside Edition as well for her work at the Cincinnati Zoo with the cheetahs. So without further ado, this is Andrea Haugen. Welcome.
Hey. Thanks for the intro.
Well, we wanted to be detailed as possible.
I like it.
Okay, so we're going to dive right in. So our first question for you, again, this was put together by students. So we're going to get to the nitty-gritty of what they want to know. What topics or classes were you interested in when you came to college?
Right. So I came and I thought that I wanted to be a veterinarian. So I was kind of focusing all of my classwork on what the prerequisites were for vet school at the time. So that was mostly what I did. After doing, I actually had worked with the pre-vet program there. I don't remember what I was, a secretary or something, or vice president. I don't know. It was a long time ago. But, worked a lot with them. And that's what I did for the first 2 years of Michigan. And I hadn't figured out quite what my major was going to be. I know I liked PitE. I had looked at PitE and I thought that was a really, really cool program. But I don't think I decided that until I did an internship over, I think it was my freshman year. I had also spoken or learned French all through, elementary school and whatnot, and I was like, I want to use this. So I went to France to do a veterinary internship there. And I worked at a little clinic there working with them. And that was super cool. But I kind of was a little taken aback by just the work itself. It was a lot of, dealing with animals under anesthesia and a lot of, I don't know, it was kind of depressing at times. I'm not going to lie. It's hard being a veterinarian. It's a lot of, unfortunately putting animals down and dealing with sick animals, which is important work, but it wasn't as fulfilling for me as I thought it might have been. And so I still wasn't sure. I still was on the pre-vet track because I knew I loved wildlife and I really wanted to work with wildlife. And so I'm not sure if it was during that time or what, when I came back and I maybe decided to go into PitE for that reason. And then I was also in the, applied to be part of the Graham Sustainability Scholars Program, partly because a big part of that, they gave you a scholarship to study abroad. And so I really wanted to go to Africa to work with wildlife in that way. And so once I got that was my sophomore year, the summer, I went to South Africa and that's where I took some classes through the University of Pretoria and did that Eco-Life program, which was really cool, but it was specifically tailored towards veterinarians, like wildlife veterinarians. Which was also amazing. I think a lot of the part that was so cool was just being in Africa and, working with the wildlife and the people there. But at the end of the day, it was still a lot of dealing with animals under anesthesia and, a lot more dealing with people than with animals actually, which is important, like I said, but still not for me. But then after that, I stayed and I worked at a cheetah rescue center there and I fell in love with cheetahs. and didn't know what I was going to do. So that's when I totally switched gears when I came back to Michigan my junior year, kind of abandoned all hope for veterinary school and focused really heavily on PitE, and then also creating my own major in the individual major program, because I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do, but I wanted to do something not only involving animals, but also studying their relationship with us as humans throughout history. And I had taken some really cool classes my freshman and junior year that were like kind of on the forefront of human animal studies, which now is a much bigger program than it was when I was an undergrad. But those classes were just so amazing, and it made me want to like focus that as a major. And so I worked with one of the professors who was in the class that kind of got me on track to that. And we worked together to create this program, individual major program in human animal studies. So I got to take classes in all across Michigan, which was really great, working with professors in, anthropology, in social sciences, in biology, in PitE, stuff like that. And it was kind of the perfect way for me to, even though I didn't know what I wanted to do, kind of mesh my education to what I was interested in. So with PitE and then the Sustainability Scholars Program and the Human Animal Studies program, I kind of got to do it all, which is great.
Thanks, Andie. Chris, you're up.
So you kind of touched on it a little bit already, but there's obviously a lot more to it. So what really got you interested in, the field that you're currently, like what you're currently doing now, but then also just in general, environment, conservation, veterinarian medicine, things like that?
Yeah. I always have just had a love for animals and kind of always known I want to work with them. It's kind of cool. We talk about it a lot in our field, how people in zookeeping or like an animal related field are kind of different than a lot of other careers, because most of us know from a young age, like we have this like really deep connection to the natural world and to animals. And we kind of knew we wanted to work with them, which is really cool. And I also just grew up, really loving the outdoors and loving traveling and a deep appreciation for the environment. So it's definitely something I'm very, very passionate about. And I wanted to have my career be something that I can help to save what I love, which is our planet and our animals that live in it. So I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to have, after vet school, I think that's when I had that big realization. I was like, I could go to vet school. I'd probably make more money, but would it be as fulfilling for me as working with the animals and educating people and like having, hands on the ground work to help save the planet, which is kind of what I feel like I do, which is awesome. So I make a lot less than I would have as a veterinarian, but it's not all about money. I tell myself that when I'm paying my bills, but it is very fulfilling work, which is what I love about my job. So
I realized I forgot to do some further introductions. Sorry, Chris. Chris Poza is a co-advisor in PitE. You might remember Hillary Smith. Chris has her old position, so she's co-advisor.
Yes, okay.
And Kelly Bayard is one of our awesome peer advisors, and she's going to be asking the next question.
Cool. So nice to meet you guys.
It's nice to meet you too. I am excited to watch your TikToks after this.
A lot of cheetah purrs.
Yeah, I follow a lot of different wildlife TikToks. So
nice.
So what was your dream job as undergrad? You kind of talked about like you wanted to be a vet, but maybe once you kind of transitioned to thinking beyond doing veterinary things, maybe what was your dream job and like what goals did you have when you were a student?
Yeah, so I think I had a period of time where I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And it was kind of a panic mode. So I really leaned into, my studies there. And I started volunteering at a local zoo there. It's just about 15 minutes south of the stadium there in Ann Arbor. It's called the Creature Conservancy. And it was a little zoo that does a lot of like outreach and education. And so that's what I did in my free time when I was still in undergrad. And then eventually they ended up hiring me there, which was great because that's how I got a lot of my paid experience. But something that we did was every fall we did a fundraiser where the Columbus Zoo would come and bring some of their ambassador animals up to Ann Arbor. And we would do this big fundraiser with all these really cool animals to raise money for our zoo. And so it was, I think it was my junior year when I had gotten back from South Africa and had no idea what I was going to do. I was just kind of in this weird limbo. And we were doing this big event, and the Columbus Zoo, you know, they came, they brought out a penguin, they brought out like, you know, all these awesome animals. And then at the very end, these two guys walked out with a cheetah, and I like freaked out. I didn't know that that was a job. I had no idea that you could do that in the United States of America. I was in South Africa where I got to do things that you probably couldn't do in the United States. But lo and behold, these cheetahs travel and they do all these educational programs all over the world. And I, in that moment, was like, I want that job. So it was kind of that really cool thing where I kind of knew. I figured it out. And then was from that point on, I was, you know, doing whatever I could to make sure that that's the track that I was on. So the major that I had in PitE really helped because most zoological people have a major in some kind of biology. Environment's really important, obviously. And I think something else that I really loved about PitE was kind of like the education side of it. So, you know, learning not only, a lot of people have biology majors, which is really important, but I liked that it was the environment because I could talk about the impacts that we have on the planet and how that's affecting the wildlife as well. Not necessarily just their natural histories, but like what's happening today, what's happening in the past, and how what we're doing affects that. So that was really nice to have kind of a different perspective when I was applying to jobs after graduating. I think that answered it. I'm very long-winded, so please cut me off if I get off topic.
No, that was great. If you were an undergrad in today's world, which is a very interesting situation we're in with COVID, but what would you do differently to prepare for your career, if anything?
Are you saying like with COVID or like just now? Like if I was graduate?
Just now. Let's not necessarily focus on COVID. Let's just say now.
Okay. You know, I think I would have tried to get more work experience. If I like to say that I kind of lucked out. Most people that get jobs in zoos have to work for 5 to 10 years as unpaid interns, unpaid volunteers, seasonals, assistants, and then they get a full-time job. So I like to say I'm kind of lucky, but I also think that just the experiences that I kind of made a priority for me while I was in undergrad really kind of helped boost me above not having to do that, if that makes sense. So like, it would have been nice if I could have had more experience at an AZA accredited zoo. That's the only thing that was difficult because it's that whole thing, you know, you need experience to get experience. I had a lot of animal experience, but to get a job in an AZA zoo, they really want to see you've worked in one. So that was hard for me when I was applying to jobs, like, you know, halfway through senior year, I was getting I applied to like 100 zookeeping jobs across the country. And, you know, I didn't hear back from 95% of them. And a few of them were like, yeah, you're great, but we need AZA experience. And the only one that I got an interview with was the Fort Worth Zoo. And that's who hired me. But that was the only one out of 100. So, you know, it just goes to show, I think I was lucky, but I also was able to get that experience at the Creature Conservancy really helped. So the people that were hiring at the Fort Worth Zoo, they knew of the Creature Conservancy. So they knew that it was a reputable organization. I think that's kind of the hard thing when you're working in zoos is that's why they have that AZA accreditation standard. So I think that helped me kind of get that experience. But that's something that I always say to, you know, kids at the zoo or, you know, people who are looking to get a job in this field is to get that kind of experience as soon as possible. Like, obviously, you know, having a degree is important and pretty much a requirement at this point in zookeeping and in zoos, but the biggest thing is your work experience. So the sooner you can start doing that, the sooner you can start figuring out what you want to do by getting your hands on the ground and doing the work. That's what's going to really help. And that's what I think really helped me to get my first full-time job.
So another one you've already touched on a little bit, but maybe you can kind of give some additional information. What would you recommend to students who are unsure of what to do following graduation?
Yeah, that's a good point. I honestly was at a point where I had taken this really great, it was actually a grad school class through SNRE. I don't remember what the class was called, but it was really, it was something that I was looking at doing instead of going into the job market. My professor there was doing really cool research on lizards that were endemic to different islands in Greece. And he was going to have, I'm sure maybe you guys have heard of that study. It's really cool. Yeah, and he wanted me to come do it and go, continue on through U of M and through SNRE. And I was really, really close to doing it. It was really close, but I kind of decided that, I can always go back to grad school. I want to make some money, but I also was really thinking that getting experience was going to be really helpful for me, and getting that hands-on job. I think it would even help me more if I wanted to go back to grad school, which we could talk about later. I now am in grad school. But so I think that's hard, making that decision. And then also, just figuring out what you like to do and just getting the hands-on experience is what I can advise you. You don't know what you want to do, just try a bunch of stuff. Just try it and see what works, see what sticks, see what inspires you. I wouldn't have known that I wanted to do what I'm doing now if I hadn't experienced it first. So I didn't even know it existed, to be honest.
Okay, so I have the ability to look up the class that you took. So it's actually a permanent cross-listing now between C's and PitE. Johannes Bufopoulos is the instructor, which Kelly knows.
Yes.
Yay!
Yes.
So he teaches Environ 317, Com Bio in the fall, and then he teaches Wildlife, Ecology, and Conservation in the winter. It's Environ 424. So if anyone is listening in the world, that's an option to take the class. Kelly, you're up.
Highly recommend. Great professor. Loved it.
Really bummed I couldn't fit the wildlife class into my.
It was one of my favorites.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question, I think we're heading more into like career advice and that sort of thing. So I guess, what does networking mean to you? How do you network? Maybe past networking experiences, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'll start that. I mean, if there are students that are still in undergrad, I think you especially in Michigan, like that is the place that you can really network and make some amazing connections. I had so many great advisors, professors. I would take advantage of office hours all the time. Just even oftentimes I'd go just to like hear about them and where they, how they got to where they are, what they maybe kind of doing this kind of thing, but like with my professors. And that was not only great just to learn from them, but also when the time came to need references, you have these great relationships with your professors at a really prestigious university, which was amazing. I think that was really helpful. So start that from the time you get there. Like there's amazing people at U of M. And that's one of my favorite things about going there was all of the people that I met. And then aside from that, like, yeah, networking has been, it's very important in my field because it is such a competitive field. It's very hard to get a job here at an AZA Zoo, but once you're in it, everyone has only a few degrees of separation from everyone else. So we kind of all know each other. So getting that initial like into the field can be difficult. But something that I always advise is just go, if you're really interested in zoos, volunteering at zoos, visiting zoos, like if you're at a zoo, just talk to someone. Like everyone loves their jobs. They're very friendly. We love talking about how we got to where we are. And even just making that connection just by visiting a zoo is really important. And honestly, it seems weird because I never thought that like social media would be how I would meet people professionally. But I actually have met a lot of people through social media in this field, and I've connected with them and been able to, set up, professional meetings. We've been able to visit each other at our facilities. If we have questions about something or a training behavior, or, maybe trying to get a new animal, I have all these people that I can reach out to, some of them that I have met on social media, just because we love our jobs and we love sharing about them. So there are the traditional ways of networking, which obviously social media is not one of them, but we also have a lot of really good conferences through the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. That's one big one, AZA. And I met a lot of people. I got to go to that conference 2 years ago. It was in Seattle. It's so cool. But I was just really like, I was, very new to the field and didn't know a lot of these people, but I just kind of put myself out there and I would introduce myself to everyone and, go to as many talks as I could, and then also stay afterwards to talk to the people that were giving the talks, give them my business card, grab their business card. Making that kind of connection with people is a great way to network. It's something that I've always found has been really helpful throughout my whole career. So yeah, if you can go to conferences, that's another great way to do that.
Excellent. Good. You've kind of hit on this a little bit in one of the questions we asked, but let's be direct, I guess. So if you could do, well, that's the wrong. That's right. If you could do undergrad all over again, what experiences or classes would you seek out and why? Sorry, you kind of answered some of it, so it sounded familiar, but.
Yeah, I wish I would have looked at my transcript before I did this, because I could remember all the classes I did. But, I definitely would have, maybe not done as many of there was one class that really, I don't know if it was Biochem 2 or one of them that really was just very difficult for me and not something I was interested in at all, but I kept doing it because I thought that that's what I needed to do to get where I needed to post-graduation. There's obviously certain classes, you're not going to love every class. Certain ones you have to meet for requirements' sake, but I feel like it was definitely a sign when I hated the classes as much as I did, and I still kept taking them. That's something to take into consideration. And also, I think putting yourself in classes that you maybe it's something you don't know anything about, or it just seems interesting or something you'd like to learn about. If you're able to do that, that was some of my favorite part of undergrad was, stepping outside of my box of what I thought I liked and learning new things. And one of those was that human animal studies class. It didn't have anything to do with me going to vet school, but changed everything just by taking that one class. So I would do more of those if I could, because there's a lot of really cool ones. I'm sure there's more now.
So you mentioned this earlier about wanting to make a difference. So what advice do you have for students who want to do the same?
I would say don't give up on it. It can be trying at times, especially in a competitive. I feel like a lot of environmental jobs can be really competitive because a lot of them are nonprofits, and nonprofits are also not necessarily the biggest money makers either. So that can be hard, especially if that's an issue, or if you have a lot of student loans, stuff like that can be difficult. So I think, be persistent, but also realize that there are so many different ways that you can make a difference in your job. Not necessarily, you don't have to become like a zookeeper to help save the planet, right? There's a lot of things that you can do in any kind of role. And I think that's why I really liked PitE as well, because it was able to, I met a lot of different people that were doing so many different things, but it still was all tying back to how can we be better to the planet? How can we be more sustainable? How can we be more efficient? And it was a really cool way to see the world in an environmental lens. And it doesn't necessarily matter what fields per se you're in, you can still do that. And I'm also really excited because I was able to, I don't know if I had any influence on this, but my younger sister, she's at Northern Michigan University, and she's majoring in environmental science. I was like, yes, more of us. But so that was really, really cool. But she actually just did an internship for NASA. She's going to be, maybe, we'll see it when she graduates, working for them. So it's applicable all over the place. And I think that's something that's really cool, that, your degree and your job doesn't necessarily have to be like, I am saving the planet, but you can do it in a lot of different ways.
Okay, Kelly's up.
Yep. So, very open-ended question. Maybe you haven't even thought about it, but we're prompting you now. Where do you see your own career going?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, Jamie kind of touched on it earlier. Like, this is my dream job. Once I was at, an undergrad, and I saw Columbus come out with that cheetah, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do that. It's amazing. But I kind of came to the realization that job is not only super competitive within zoos, there's only a handful of zoos in the country that have ambassador cheetah programs. And there's only a handful of full-time trainer positions in those. So I was anticipating mentally and emotionally that it was going to take me 10 to 15 years to secure one of those jobs. Like, realistically, working around, the States, I was going to have to move a few times to get more work experience before I could get one of those jobs. So I got my first full-time job at the Fort Worth Zoo, doing a bunch of education stuff, working with a bunch of animals there. Didn't have cheetahs, but had a serval and raptors. Raptors actually kind of work the same as cheetahs. It's the whole thing, but they do. So that experience is really helpful, but I applied to this job not thinking I was going to get it. I thought it was a total long shot. I didn't think I was going to get an interview. And so the fact that I got an interview and they flew me out for an in-person interview was a big deal. And I also, something that I love U of M, and even to this day, even though I live in Ohio now, I was in the airport, like, doing research about the zoo and the people I was going to be interviewing with, and I was going to be interviewing with our director, Thane Maynard, and he is a graduate from SNRE. So, small world, but I was like, that is amazing, and I will definitely be bringing that up in my interview. So, who knows? I mean, there's a confluence of factors that, allowed me to basically get my 10, 15-year plan done in 2 years. So I kind of am in this weird place now where I love my job and I don't have any plans on leaving anytime soon. However, I definitely have, looked forward and seen that I would love to kind of be in a more, maybe a more managerial role someday. I think that I have the experience that would allow me to kind of oversee more people and more maybe run a program like the one that I am in would be really, really cool. Being more on that higher level, being able to, work with our, with the zoos across the country we have like the species survival plan. So you have people that are usually in curatorial roles that are like the head of those. So we have one for cheetahs, they help manage all the cheetahs in the country. There's some for all these different species. It would be really cool if I could, have a big role in one of those. There's a lot of different ways that you can grow within this field. So I don't think I plan on leaving it, but there's a lot of different avenues that I could take to kind of advance further. And then I also, like I was mentioning earlier, how I, decided not to go to grad school at U of M, but I decided to get in my work experience. And I knew I kind of wanted to go back at some point, and I actually just started a grad program over the summer through the University of Miami. So they have a master's in biology, and it's a really cool program. It's called the Advanced Inquiry Program, and it's taught through the Cincinnati Zoo. So I'm able to do it while I'm also working full time and work with so it's a lot for like educators, environmental majors. There's obviously a lot of zoo people in it, but a big component of it is community conservation and working within your communities. And also they have a bunch of different bases around the world as well to do community conservation with a bunch of different species. So, there's like the golden lion tamarins, and there's, the Sumatran rhinos, there's places all over, which is really cool and something that I really love, because that's what I loved about undergrad, was being able to, you know, put real world experiences to what I was studying. And so that's something that I'll be able to do now with my master's. So it would be cool. Maybe I'm my boss right now. She actually went through this program and now she's a professor for them. So that would be something that maybe I could do in the future as well, which would be really cool. So we'll see.
That sounds awesome. And I was literally going to ask you what was up with that, since you mentioned it, that you were going to grad school and where and what you were doing. I've actually referred students to that program who are interested in zoology, but not sure who's followed through, but definitely sounds like a great program. I've seen one.
Yeah, for sure. And they also have it, it's through the University of Miami, but they have two different programs. They have the Advanced Inquiry program, which is based at a zoo. So Cincinnati has one, Denver Zoo has one, San Diego, Atlanta, you know, a bunch of different zoos. So if you're anywhere around those, you can. They also have the Global Field Scholars program, and that one is all online except for every summer when you go to a different site to do like a 2-week course there. So there's two different ones, and they're both really cool.
That sounds amazing. Awesome. Mm-hmm. See, and thank you for telling me, because I can just pass it on to students.
You can tell them, yeah.
Networking, working together.
So you're doing it now.
Okay, so next question it relates because you're back in school. So how are you juggling work while trying to pursue your other interests, like continuing education or like a personal life?
You know, especially right now during the pandemic, that just doesn't exist. No, it has been hard. I mean, I'm pretty new into the program. My first semester was over the summer, and then now I'm in the second semester. I have a big paper due on Wednesday that I'm procrastinating a little bit, but it is difficult to kind of, you just have to, it's time management, you know, it's setting aside a little time each day to work on, you know, grad school. And then also what's also cool is Cincinnati Zoo is a lot of my friends here. You know, I'm not from here. I'm from Grand Rapids, Michigan. So I didn't know anyone before I came here, and working in an institution where everyone is, you know, loves their jobs and is very passionate about it. And there's just really cool people here. So that's been a way that I've been able to make a lot of friends here as well. So a lot of us, we work together, we hang out together. It's really fun. And Cincinnati is also nice because it's relatively cheap to live here. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere, but it's within a driving distance of a lot of cool places. And so that's what I like to do in my free time, is go hiking, take my dog, and go to fun places on the weekends, and sometimes travel on a whim to Alaska, which is what I did last month. So.
And if you follow her on social media, you can see amazing photos. Just saying.
Oh my God, it was so incredible. I want to move there now.
So, I mean, this is something you've touched on again, but definitely very relevant for our students, students in general. So undergrads often faced with limited experience or resources, especially just out of school. You know, you already mentioned this, but like, how did you navigate that? And do you have any advice for students as they're preparing for that post-graduation world?
Yeah, I think that a big part of it is don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask your peers how they're doing it, or ask your professors and advisors, you know. You got to put yourself out there. I'm a pretty outgoing person, so that definitely worked in my favor. But, you know, I think that, yeah, making those connections is plays a huge part in navigating it and figuring it out. And I think also asking people how they did it, that's really important as well. I reached out to a lot of people, and I actually have people do this to me all the time, is asking me how I did it. And I think that's really important, because you can kind of see, oh, okay, this person, you know, had this experience, but was lacking in this. And then they were able to get a scholarship here, you know, to do X, Y, and Z. Oh, maybe that's something I can do, you know. It's important to not only, you know, obviously get what you need to in undergrad, but also take advantage of the, you know, non-traditional learning that you have there through the people and through the experiences on campus. I know there's also a lot of really cool extracurricular programs there that you can, and groups and clubs and stuff that you can get in with, and that really helps. I was in the pre-vet club when I was there. That really helped me actually figure out, I don't want to do that, but it worked for a lot of people that want to do pre-vet. And I know there's a lot of really cool environmental ones, a lot of organizations that you can work with within Ann Arbor as well, to kind of help you get your experience there. That's helpful. So also think outside of the box when it comes to maybe your traditional schooling and how I can learn, taking advantage of the resources that I have in the city and with this university, and those connections is really important.
Sounds good. Okay, I do have one more question before we wrap it up and allow others to just jump in and put questions in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask questions. What is a day in the life of a cat ambassador?
Yeah, it changes day to day, which is part of why I love it. It's been a little weird in the COVID world, not gonna lie. We went through a period where we were closed, which is insane because the zoo never closes. But you know, I'll come in, we start our day at 7:30, we have a little team meet, kind of talk what we need to get through to the day, and then we all kind of spread out to do our daily husbandry cleaning. So as you know, glamorous and fun as my job may look on social media, there's a lot of dirty stuff. I'm not gonna lie. Cats and all animals are pretty dirty. So that's what I was doing all morning before I came to talk with you guys, is cleaning and making their food and making everything all pretty for them to make it gross again. And then after that, it kind of depends on the day. So in a normal season, we have our cheetah encounter program twice a day, which is really amazing. I'm really sad we didn't do it this year because of COVID, but that's about a half-hour long program where we have all of our animals come out, you know, exhibiting their natural behaviors, and we were working with them, talking about them. And then we end it with 2 cheetah runs as well for people to watch. So we do those. That kind of takes up most of our day, usually during the normal season. We'll take a lunch, and then in the afternoon, kind of do whatever else needs to be done. If we have projects around the area, we do a lot of our own, you know, like weeding and cleaning and fixing things, very handy with tools. And then we also have, you know, different training projects. We're trying to work with an animal. Like I was working with one of our cheetahs to do a voluntary blood draw, which is really important to have our animals be comfortable, to make sure that they can see the veterinarians in a safe and happy way. So that's really important. Or we also have training with maybe new staff members who are coming, because you can't just, you know, walk in there and hang out with the animals. You got to have a relationship with them in order to do that. And so that's a big part of it. When I first started was working with the other trainers to, you know, shadow them and learn what they were doing, and develop the relationship with those animals as well. We also write all our own programs. So that was something that was also cool about undergrad, was kind of having that really great writing experience. It helped a lot when I'm writing curriculums or, you know, our educational programs, to kind of have that as a background. And then we have, you know, all the enrichment for animals. We have the dogs who are companions to the cheetahs. Taking them for walks around the zoo is always fun, and they obviously enjoy that. And then it kind of depends. Like actually, after I'm done talking with you guys, we are going to be going up. We have a new, well, relatively new facility. It's about 600 acres. It's a half hour north of the zoo downtown. It was donated to us, this land was, and it was old farmland that we are in the process of converting back to its natural habitat of a wetland. And then on top of that, we also are hoping to, Cincinnati Zoo is the most sustainable zoo in the country, and we're hoping to be net zero on our energy by 2025. And a big part of that has to do with this Boyer farm, where we are growing pretty much all of our browse, our hay, a lot of the food for the animals. The goal is eventually to have all of our food out there, we'll see. But we also have the largest urban solar array in any city. It actually covers all of our parking lot here, but we also are gonna have some more up there. And this land is also really cool because it has all these, we've been able to reintroduce a lot of native birds actually to this habitat that was just farmland. And so they have a ton of birds up there. It's great for bird watching. They've seen bald eagles there now. And then aside from that, we also built a new cheetah run out there. So it's this huge space. I think that it's like about 6 football fields in size. And since our cheetahs are trained as ambassadors from a very young age, we trained them how to ride in a van in a crate. And that's how we would go to school programs and do stuff like that. But now, a lot of what we've been doing is taking them up there to this new running space. And so it's really cool, and it's the biggest run we think in the world for cheetahs. And it's going to be a place where we can have, either school groups come up there, kind of get a private cheetah run. We can have, big donor groups that are wanting to donate money to the zoo, but also want to have a cool experience, come up there and see all the great sustainability work we're doing at the Boyer Farm, and then end it with the cheetah run. We're not really sure. There's kind of limitless possibilities for it right now, but part of that is getting our cheetahs used to running up there. So that's what we will be doing after I'm done with you guys, is we're taking our little cheetah Chris up there to run her, which is going to be really fun.
That is awesome. Like,
so awesome.
I'd love to just shadow you.
Come on down.
Yeah, can we do a PitE field trip maybe?
Yeah, totally. We're just all gonna bust down.
Would love it. It's not that far. It's only like a 4-hour drive. I've done it.
Yeah.
Easy. For Michiganders, 4 hours, it's nothing.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Okay, if anyone has any follow-up questions for Andie, you can put them in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and just ask. Don't be shy. Okay, well, if we have answered everything you want to know.
I have a question.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks, Kelly.
So like I figured out I cannot work with big cats because I'm super allergic to cats. So until that is rectified, that's not it. But I always wanted to like work with wildlife, and yeah, I guess going to U of M and not having like a wildlife biology major. I of course am like in PitE, but and I don't know. I haven't done any volunteering with like animal husbandry or anything like that yet, but I don't know, like how bad is that? Like it's just something I am very interested in, but I guess if I get started soon, it could still be fine.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you have people in this field. I think I really got ahead of the game in terms of doing a lot of stuff while I was already in undergrad. But a lot of people haven't done anything, and one of my really close friends, she didn't realize she wanted to be in the zoo field until I think she was basically graduated. And so, yeah, she started just volunteering at Cincinnati here and working here. And eventually she got a paid job. And then what was also really cool is she, then she was really good at, public speaking, and that kind of came across. So she interviewed to be a seasonal with us in our Cat Ambassador program, and we did hire her, which was, that great experience as well. And then after that, there was an opening at my old zoo in Fort Worth Zoo. And since I had worked with her and I liked her and I knew she was good, and I also knew all the people at Fort Worth, I gave her a really good recommendation. And that's how she got her first full-time job. She actually moved on there for that. So it's never too late. You can just start volunteering, start working, and, anyone can do it. It's just, putting the time and energy in doing it. And also, just connecting with people is really important too. So every zookeeper story is vastly different. It's fun when we have people ask us during our programs, because all the 4 of us, the 4 trainers in our program, none of us are from Cincinnati. We're from all over the place. We all moved here for this job. And so we all have very different stories on how we got to this position. And so there's no one way to do it, really. There's not. So.
Anyone else? All right. Okay. Well, that concludes our alumni chat for today. Thank you so much, Andie, for participating. I'm so happy to see that you found your spot in the world. It's so great.
Thanks for having me. And something I always like to also say is like, please feel free to reach out to me. You can send my email. You said you had my social media channels too. If that's easier for people, like send me a message. I love answering questions and talking to people about it. So don't be afraid to reach out and network.
Awesome. Thank you so much.